Mindsetters, welcome to today's Grade 12 Geography show on Economic Geography, proudly brought to you by Macmillan. We have selected highlights from lessons shown earlier in the term to help you revise this term's work. So please post your comments and your questions on our Facebook page or on Twitter @LearnExtra so we can help you with your revision. You can also download the show notes for today's lesson from learn.mindset.co.za or click on the link on our Facebook page. Now it's time to get on with today's lesson.
Okay, we've got a newspaper article for you on food production, and if we just read through it very quickly, right, it says there, melons are just bursting with chemicals. Okay, so watermelons have been bursting in eastern China after farmers gave them too much growth chemicals or growth hormones. South Africa has heavy trade links with China, therefore the abuse by farmers is of concern to us. Farmers in China are using illegal chemicals, with many also misusing pesticides and fertilizers. The reason for this is the demand for food, which is a problem being experienced in many countries. Fear has also been raised over the wide use of food additives like dyes and sweeteners to increase sales. The need to regulate the food industry, there we go, is becoming increasingly important because of threats of food insecurity, so not enough food, especially in Southern Africa. So let's have a look at those questions. They're going to be based very similarly to what your notes were on previously. First question, what does food insecurity mean? And they always ask this question. So remember, food security meant that we have either enough food to meet the normal needs of our current population every day, or you can afford to buy enough food to live a healthy lifestyle. So it doesn't matter how much you phrase it, but as long as you've got the concept of enough food to remain healthy or enough food to meet your daily requirements, they should give you the marks. Okay, so food insecurity, therefore, the opposite of that. Okay, so they don't have enough food to meet their needs. So they don't have enough to meet their daily needs. And this could also happen because of exceeding population growth, which means that the demand is exceeding the food supply. Let's move on to the next question, 1.2. Describe the injustice that is captured in the article. Now there's a few things going on there. They were speaking about illegal chemicals, illegal growth hormones that they're putting in these watermelons, okay? Now that can have adverse effects on our health. And some of our consumers don't even know that they're consuming these things, all these extra chemicals and hormones. They're illegal chemicals as well. They don't fit our quality of standards, okay? In addition to that, when we're adding chemicals to the environment, it also damages the environment. Things like eutrophication happen because extra nutrients get into the soil, into the water systems, into our drainage systems. So there are huge problems associated with adding too many extra things into our food. Additives, preservatives, they're all bad for our health as well. So let's just write down a few things that illustrate the fact that there's injustice. Okay, you're not meeting the needs of society, you're not being fair to the needs of society here. Right, so the injustice, okay, is that they're using illegal chemicals. All right. And people don't even know about this, so people are unaware. In addition, it's going to lead to health problems because you're consuming all these extra things that shouldn't go in your body. And lastly, there's also environmental damage. You only needed 2 things there. As long as you write them in a good sentence, you'll be able to get your marks. Question 1.3. In many parts of the world, genetically modified crops, so GM crops, are seen as a means of increasing food production. Okay, there's 2 questions here. Firstly, explain the concept of genetic modification. Right? So genetic referring to your DNA, modification meaning that you're changing the structure of that DNA. But it's worth 4 marks, so we need to add why perhaps we need to change the structure of DNA in plants. So there's a couple of reasons that they do this. Firstly, they want to make them more drought resistant because the rate of drought and desertification, especially in Africa, is huge. So they need to make varieties of crops that can handle those drier conditions. In addition to that, sometimes they modify the DNA structure so that it improves the nutritional value or that it produces a higher yield of a crop. So we need you to say what genetic modification is and say what it is for, because it's worth 4 marks. Okay? All right, so we change the structure of the DNA in the plants. Okay. In addition to changing that DNA, we are making them drought resistant or resistant to diseases even. Okay. We are also doing it to increase the yield. And we're also trying to make it more nutritious in certain cases. All right. Second part of that question. You have to discuss 2 advantages of genetic modification. Now, I mentioned 1 or 2 of those already. Okay, so we just need to discuss in a sentence. Don't just write phrases there. So firstly, we know that genetic modification makes seeds drought resistant. So for small-scale commercial or small-scale subsistence farmers, this is a good thing because then their crops will last longer because they can't afford to irrigate their crops. It also makes crops resistant to diseases and pests so that their crops also don't fail. So they're going to create a greater yield. And greater yields, if we're talking about commercial farms, mean greater exports, which means a greater contribution to our GDP. So I think we just needed 2 things there, so let's take those down. Okay, so firstly, it makes them drought resistant, so they can have a higher yield. So drought and pest resistant. Okay, creates higher yields. Okay, and therefore a greater export value, which obviously will contribute nicely to our GDP. All right, that's questions done and dusted. On to question 1.4. Now, this is your essay question, right? You're going to need 8 marks here. It says, the increasing demand for food is a disturbing development. Give a detailed account, so you need to discuss everything properly, approximately 12 lines as to why many southern African countries are struggling to meet their food demand. So they're obviously saying that these places are not secure in terms of their food production. So let's just discuss this together quickly. So firstly, we know that we have a lot of areas in southern Africa which are very prone to droughts. I mean, just think about the Northern Cape. Think about the Namib Desert. They can't grow food there. So how are they supposed to provide for themselves and their families? In addition to that, the rainfall is so variable and so unpredictable that they can't always produce enough food. A lot of these farmers are very poor, so they can't afford things like fertilizers. Those things are expensive. They can't afford hybrid varieties of seed. Okay, they can't afford insecticides and pesticides. A lot of the time, governments are quite unscrupulous, so they don't get government aid as well. Just look at the legacy of apartheid. Our government wasn't fair to black farmers, and so they couldn't produce enough food. So there's quite a lot that we can be talking about here. So let's just jot a few things down. Just remember that you have to put this properly in a nice paragraph so that it's a proper essay question. Let's have a look at those notes. Right, so first of all, okay, let's write down that fertilizers and pesticides are expensive. Can't really afford them. All right, in addition to that, drought has taken its toll, so they can't grow enough food. And while the fact, as well as the fact of variable rainfall is a big problem as well. In addition to that, they tend to exploit the soil, exploit the land, so over-exploitation of soil, of land. And we can add in there, we've already got more than enough, but the fact that we had corrupt governments which don't aid them enough is also a problem. There are many more reasons you could give. If they are logical and they make sense, you get your marks. All right, let's have a look at the next question. Question 2, they give you a little diagram, all right, and they show you all sorts of types of farming that are going on. So we're going to focus mainly on this region here. We're going to focus on this region here as well. Okay, notice, especially with region A, all right, that we have a tractor. We have quite a large area of farm being made there, or farm being plowed there. And we also have rather neat rows or neat arrangements of crops. So that's probably going to be our commercial farm area. This area here, you can see there's huts there, or informally made sort of settlements, and they're probably growing just enough to support their families. So at B, we probably have subsistence farmers. Let's have a quick look at those questions. All right, so firstly, you need to say whether or not commercial farming occurs at A or at B, okay? If we had a look at the diagram now, we saw that at A, they had a tractor there, they had a big plot of land, they had neatly arranged rows of crops, okay? So that's firstly answer A for the first question. At B, we need to give just one reason. I'm going to give you more, but one reason for your answer. Okay, so firstly, they have very large tracts of land. In addition to that, they have mechanization. They're using tractors. They also have neat rows of crops, which only rarely happens on a commercial farm. Just one of those gets you your 2 marks. Question C. Name 2 factors that favor agricultural development in South Africa. Now, we've already discussed these, so I'm just going to list them with you guys quickly. So firstly, we have a wide variety of crops because of a wide range in climate. So wide range in climate allows for crops, lots of different crops to be grown. Okay. We also have a rich history of climate research, which helps us to predict whether or not we're going to have a good or bad rainy season. We have extensive plant research as well. So that means that we've been able to develop hybrids that are drought resistant, for example. Much of South Africa is also flat, so we have large expanses of flat land or gently rolling hills, which does make a lot of farming a lot easier. You've got more than enough, you only needed 2 things there. There are many more though. D, name 2 factors that restrict or stop agricultural development in South Africa. So these are the not so nice things that hamper our development here. All right, so again, you can say that we have too much drought, and I'm going to specify that especially to the western parts of South Africa. Especially areas like the Northern Cape, for example. Okay, you can say we have unreliable rainfall. You can also mention the overuse of soil as well. We've exploited it, so that means we can't get enough yield from it anymore. Let's have a look at question E. Of what importance, why is it necessary, in other words, is agricultural development to the South African economy? Okay, so we've mentioned a few things here before, and we've discussed them at length already. So firstly, we have a lot of employment. And remember, that was both direct and indirect employment. People that work on the farms, people that work for food stores, truck drivers, all those sorts of things. Okay? It's also important for our food security. We need to produce enough for the population. In addition to that, we've got high export value. And so that contributes to our GDP. Here we go. Question done. Right. Question F. Let's go through this one quickly. Continuous mismanagement of this drainage basin could threaten food security. See, food security coming up time and again in South Africa. Explain this statement. So what does it mean? Okay, so if we don't look after our drainage basins, for example, we're not going to have enough water for irrigation. So that means we can't irrigate our crops properly, which means our crop yields will go down. Okay, if we don't have enough crop yields, we don't have a surplus, we can't export anything. We also can't feed our population. So that means that they're going to encounter famine. Then we're going to have to import a lot of food from other countries, which is also expensive. So just from not looking after our water resources, it has a lot of knock-on effects. So let's very quickly jot a few things down, and then we'll go to a break. Okay? All right, so firstly, we don't have enough water for irrigation. Okay, which leads to a lower crop yield. Which means that we'll have to import food as well, which is expensive. And we're trying to do that to combat food security or food insecurity. Food insecurity. All right, and that's the last part of question 2. I think it's time for a well-deserved break.
I think it's time for a break now, so don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back from the break. Let's not waste any more time and get straight back to today's revision lesson.
Now already, if you look at the map below and answer the questions that follow. Very quickly when I looked at this, I can see it's the 4 core areas. A, which is your PWV or Gauteng region. B, Durban Pinetown. C, Port Elizabeth Uitenhage. And D, Southwestern Cape. So if I look at the 4, it's very easy. A would be my Gauteng. B, Durban, Pinetown. And then if you look at C, obviously it'll be my PE Uitenhage. I'm sure you worked out all this by now. And of course, D would be Southwestern Cape. Ah, we go again. And even the pen took a jump. Okay, Southwestern Cape. Okay, that's our 4 regions. Let's look at the next question. Can you see these are easy? State 2 factors that promote industries at A. And you know that already, learners. The 2 factors, anything. Number 1, raw materials. You know it already. We have a surplus of raw materials here. We actually also export the raw materials from this area. Number 1, we have a market. Few million people, 7 million people in one area. So we have a market in this area. Fantastic. All right. We have various other things. Road transport in this area. Beautiful. You understand? Even a water supply with the water projects. So there's a lot of things in this area. Let's look at the next question. State the main type of industry found at B. All right? One of them is your food industry. I will accept a few. Your food, which is big, I would accept it. I will also accept the oil refinery, because it's quite big here. Okay? Which is in your chemical industries. I would accept both. It's fine. You understand? Because these are main industries here. What is a break of bulk point? All right, you learned this under settlement also. This area has a beautiful break of bulk point. Because what happens here? Goods come in via ship, all right, in one container. Then it changes mode of transport We could use railway lines that will transport the goods, or roads. So it comes in bulk via ship. The mode of transport changes when by rail you send them out. All right? So that's your break of bulk explanation, where one mode of transport is changed to another. Okay? Example, your water transport changed to your rail transport. Discuss any two factors that promoted industrial development in South Africa. A similar question to the above, just that now we're talking about South Africa as a whole. And if you look at this one, if you look at two factors, it could be again raw materials. It also could be transport, which we have here. We also could be variety of climate, which will make us grow a variety of crops, etc. So there's so many that can come in through here. Briefly discuss two factors that are currently restricting development. One would be definitely water supply. If you look at the west of South Africa, do you understand? There's not much water, therefore there is limited development. All right? Also, we will find that in South Africa, industrial development, we are gathering in terms of technology. You understand? But we need a higher level of technology and funding so that we can produce more of our good needs. All right? Technology, etc. Also, the domestic market is small. If we have a bigger domestic market, you understand, then a small domestic market, then we can be more competitive internationally, all right? In the sense that we'll sell a lot of our goods in this country already. So when we go on to the international market, we have already made a huge amount of money. We can lower our prices and therefore we can sell more. Remember, we're going across many of these strong competitors who have already sold, like America. They've already sold their goods in their country. They've already made profits. So when they want to come out onto the international market, they can negotiate their prices. But when you have a small domestic market, you have a serious problem in terms of competing with the rest. Study the map and answer the questions that follow. Let's look at it. All right? What is given to us here? Not much information. We have Transkei. I'm also ringing beside underlining. All right. And next to Transkei, we have a border industry. That's the information it's giving. So it's giving a homeland and it's giving a border industry. The examiner is going to focus on that. Most probably is going to ask us about border industries, etc. Okay. But there's not much information else. We don't have to interpret anything more. So let's look at it. Yes, we were right, learners. It says, explain the term border industries. And already you worked that out. What is a border industry? It's actually, they were growth points that bordered the homelands. There it is here, your border industry there. Growth points that bordered the homelands. All right? Let's look at another question. Is this an apartheid or post-apartheid industrial development strategy? Very simple questions. Learners, if you learn your content, it's easy. You already worked this out. It happened during the apartheid era, so it is a apartheid development strategy. Okay? Explain the purpose of border industries. Remember, the main purpose was to keep a white republic, all right? to keep black South Africans, all right, in the homelands and encourage them to move back to the homelands. That was the big intention, all right, to keep a white republic. Let's look at the next question. State 3 incentives, all right, 3 incentives that were offered to the industrialists to move to these border industries. Okay, that seemed to be missing there, but to move to the border industries. All right. Okay, what was the incentives? You already worked it out. All right, you would have looked here, guys, at tax concessions, number 1 here, where they said they can pay less tax. All right, I mean, that's a big boost to any industrialist that you're paying less tax. Transport subsidies, especially with the rail that was owned by the government at that time. So if you transported your goods by rail, you paid far less money than if you were in the main industrial areas. So it was a huge incentive for industrialists to say, but we're going to benefit so much. Labor concessions, all right, to move things, okay, into the area. Okay, the costs involved for your labor movement, etc., was far cheaper. In fact, even other things like electricity in some areas was given to you at a cheaper rate. If you rented buildings, etc., it was given to you at a cheaper rate. Bank loans sometimes was also organized at a cheaper rate. So they created a lot of concessions in order to move the people to these areas. All right, explain why border industries failed. All right, they weren't as successful. All right, and we know that also in the sense that in many cases they had their own labor. Let me do that again. All right, and take it back here. All right, they had a lot of their own labor. All right, which limited the labor from the homelands. So the intention was, I brought all the skilled labor into the area. So what did I use? I used the homelands for unskilled labor. It didn't really develop the people that the so-called intention was mentioned at the early parts, that this is what we're doing for the homelands. All right. Secondly, many industrialists did not want to move. They were settled in the areas. They were making their money. So they didn't want to move from the centralized areas where they were settled. Why should we move? We're making enough. We don't want to move. So these were issues that limited the movement and did not make these border industries very successful. And as soon as the post-apartheid came in, this sort of system was thrown out. Okay? Right, let's look at the next one. Question 2. I've put in a little statement here, or a little article, because that's the type of questions that you can also get. So let's look at this. All right. Various post-apartheid industrial development strategies were put into place to accelerate economic growth. All right, and to address economic injustices. This is what you know the intention of this was, to address the economic injustices of the apartheid era. Some of these policies were the Black Economic Empowerment, BEE, Growth, Employment and Redistribution Policy, GEAR, and Accelerated Shared and Growth Initiative in South Africa. These were 3. All right, so let's look at the questions for this one. Explain the following post-apartheid industrial development strategies. BEE, you know that in many cases, especially in management and business positions, etc., during the apartheid era, most of this was held by the white population. And now it was trying to introduce the black population into these types of jobs and businesses and opportunities so that the playing fields can be leveled. So let's look at our answer here. Yes, it was aimed to bring black people into the economy. All right? Let's look at the next question. The growth, employment, and redistribution policy, the GEAR policy, again remember, it was the economic growth or the development of the economy which will reduce the employment. All right? We can look at our answer again. Aim is to create a fast-growing economy and sufficient jobs. Both are related, learners. A fast-growing economy is related to sufficient jobs. And the third definition here was accelerated shared growth initiative. And you know what was this, all right? This was trying to halve the unemployment and the poverty. Okay, that was the shared accelerated growth. Try to get growth quicker so we can halve these issues. All right? And if you look at this, it's to create economic growth and reduce poverty and unemployment by 50%, to cut it down, to bring these policies or bring these issues down so that we can have a more stable economy and we can improve the quality of life of all South Africans. All right. State and explain the main factor that resulted in economic growth and redistribution policy having limited success. Can you see what's happening here, learners? This is very content-based. So it's simple. You know this answer already, that economic growth was slow. Therefore, you understand we could not get as much employment opportunities because there's less factories. It didn't grow that fast. So there's less jobs, there's less businesses, there's less jobs. So let's look at our answer again down here. All right, it was slow economic growth. With slow economic growth, obviously, there will be less jobs available. If there's more economic growth, that means the economy is going up all the time. What's going to happen, learners? We're going to have more businesses, more industries, greater opportunities coming through, more jobs. Let's look at the next one. State 3 possible steps that could be introduced or taken to achieve accelerated and shared growth initiative in South Africa. Obviously, you would have worked these factors out. How can we do economic growth? How can we improve it? All right, we talk about education and various aspects. So we look at here, improving education, all right? How would that do it? If you improve people's education, they become more skilled, all right? And employment opportunities are better for them, and also higher salaries, all right? Which will generally increase opportunities by investing more money by government, getting overseas investors, therefore increasing employment opportunities. Providing the basic needs for the people. You may say, how is this involved? If I provide basic needs for the people, you understand, already the conditions of living will be better. Okay, they'll uplift themselves, they'll be more productive. So even this will accelerate economic growth. It'll bring in more stability in the area. All right? I'm going to introduce this one question, and learners, in between I'm going to take a little break because I'm going to give you all a break, but I'm going to introduce this question before we take that break. All right, let's take question 3, all right, which says study the article and answer the questions that follow. It seems quite good that we look at a little case study or a little short description because these things you'll be getting quite often, all right. I took one on the Maputo Corridor SDI, Spatial Development Initiative. All right, the Maputo Corridor SDI. The Maputo Corridor SDI connects Gauteng, Mpumalanga, and Maputo in Mozambique. All right, around 30 investments have been identified. The areas of investment include agriculture, infrastructure, tourism, and manufacturing. Now you may say, agriculture? If along that corridor, that's SDI, if there's sort of development happening, then obviously you're going to get a need for more food, more agriculture. You understand? If you look at the infrastructure, to build the infrastructure, learners, you need employment. All right? You're linking up two areas. People from the countries want to visit each other there. All right? Tourism. You're seeing the road being built well and connecting areas. Imagine if we looked at, and I showed you that earlier on, if you looked at people in Mpumalanga, or if you looked at people in Gauteng, they got another venue or another area that they can take the goods through the harbor. You understand? Maputo is a harbor. Industrialists say, what beautiful infrastructure. We can build along it, all right? And we can take our goods out of this area to Maputo, where we can transport our goods to the other countries overseas. So everybody seems to benefit from this sort of thing.
Okay, guys, I hope you are enjoying this revision session. If you are struggling and need help, please post on the page or send your questions to the Learn Extra Help Desk. The links are on our Facebook page. But now it's time to take a very quick break. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back from the break, guys. Doing revision is really important, so I hope you are enjoying this lesson. I'd love to chat to you on our Facebook page or on Twitter, so please let us know how you are doing. Enough of the chat, now it's time to get back to some more revision.
Here I've created a bit of a picture, all right? And again, I'm showing you, notice I'm emphasizing on fruit, eh? And you can see this guy who is standing on the side of the road and he's selling stuff. He's got a bit of a variety of stuff. He's got fruit and vegetable. I don't see anything else. Maybe he's got a few sweets there or something of that sort. But he's selling to a market that would buy his stuff. Okay, so it doesn't give us much more information, but it gives us a picture of what an informal sector business looks like. So let's get going. Now, again, learners, and this is how you're going to see it in your prelim exams also. It's going to be scaffolding questions where it's going to start from a simple explanation, all right? And then it's going to go further and further and further in terms of level of difficulty. All right, let's look at the first question. Explain the term informal sector. And the examiner is guiding you towards the questions. All right, you know already what's an informal sector. You know it doesn't follow the rules and regulations of a formal sector. Example, they don't pay tax. Can you see straight from your notes? And it can just appear down here. The informal sector, again, are businesses that do not follow laws and rules and are associated with the formal business. So the formal businesses has these rules, they don't have it, and they don't pay tax. Straight explanation from your notes. Look at this one. Describe 4 characteristics of the informal sector. Again, you can actually just apply this straight from your notes, but it's under a question. You know, learners, I just encourage you to do this, and maybe for all your subjects, is that when you learn, take your headings, and instead of making it a statement, factors affecting erosion, change it into a question. What are the factors affecting erosion? So in sections like this, you take your heading, make it a question, and you're sort of answering your question. You understand? It makes learning much more meaningful. Like for this one, describe 4 characteristics that of the informal sector, and this is quite simple again. You know it. They form due to unemployment and poverty. All right. Low costs are incurred to start this informal business. You don't involve a lot of money. Okay. It's actually less. You can do it with whatever resources you have. It's labor intensive with little technology. Notice what I'm doing, learners. I'm just taking my information and applying it straight as it is. But I'm looking just at the question, whether it's characteristics or challenges or whatever. Again, another question, it has no access to credit from institutions and other support and protection. You understand? They can't go to the bank and get their loans, etc. They will have to make do with what they have. All right, the operations are small scale. As I've indicated before, you understand, they don't do it on a large scale. They're not big businesses, but they're local, serving the niche market. All right, and generally family ownership. So basically what I had to do here was get 4 of them. You understand? And my question states, describe 4. I will give a little more detail, and in this case, I can get my 2 marks each, okay, for these ones, which gives me a lot of marks in this section. It can be even a paragraph question. All right, look at the next one. Again, a simple question. Explain 3 causes of informal sectors. And again, a very simple question. Number 1, if we look at this, what are the causes of it again? High rate of unemployment. Now, learners, I want to take this a little further. The explain 3 causes of informal sectors. This is a Marcus memo. All right? You need to take this a little further. So we can say, in terms of employment opportunities in the formal sector is very limited, and this high rate of unemployment, people need to support themselves in order to live. Therefore, they get involved in the informal sector. So give it a little more explanation, and you would get your 2 marks. All right? Poverty, many people are unemployed. You understand? Or many people earn salaries below the living wage. You understand? Therefore, it results in poverty. And remember, this poverty, learners, you also get a situation where people were working in an environment, in a formal environment, but the salaries were so low that it was actually better for them to get involved in the formal sector, and therefore actually earn better. So poverty could be an issue, but always remember, learners, poverty doesn't mean that the person is unemployed. He can be employed and still suffer from poverty. We've seen that a lot.
Definitely.
Illegal immigrants, of course it's an explanation, so take this further. You understand? People are coming into the country, all right? They cannot find formal employment because they are illegally in the country. Therefore, they have to look at the informal sector. So when it's a list, we give it. When it's explained, we add on to that to give you 4 marks. All right? They don't pay tax. Therefore, actually, the income they get is actually beneficial to them because all the income they earn comes back to them. Employees do not contribute to any additional benefits, example, the pension funds, etc. So whatever money they get belongs to them. All right, the fund, example, that can be included that in terms of the fund and the medical aid. So this can be in 1. State 3 challenges facing the informal sector. And I'm losing this one. And I'm losing it again. And I always lose something like this.
It's fine. It gives them some time to think it
gives
through.
them some time to think. And it's,
There
we are. This finger here. All right. So let's look at 3 challenges. Again, it's the lack of education. Example, entrepreneur skills and improvement in their businesses. It limits their improvement in their businesses. They don't receive much support from the local government. Can you see what I'm doing? Straight from the answers again, or the content. They have limited access to finance from banks, limited access to infrastructure and services. These are challenges facing them. Lack of storage space. low and irregular income, but we need to take our explanations a little further. Low and irregular income, we can say they don't know how to plan their lives. You understand? Even buying food for their families is an issue. Take it a little further, learners, if you need to explain it. Crime, you understand? This is how you're going to see these memos when you do your past papers. You need to explain the crime. What about crime? You understand? These people that don't have the protection, they don't have police protection, etc. They don't have protection against other things. They're out on the road. So what's going to happen? If somebody wants to rob them, it's quite easy to do that. So crime is an issue. Let's look at this question. Local government, and notice, I just took it. You know the content already, learners, but it came into a form of a paragraph question. Read the question carefully. Local government needs to get involved. You see what I was saying, kind of how my finger goes? The learners are used to that. Right. Improving the conditions in the formal sector. All right? They need to get involved. In a paragraph of approximately 10 lines, explain 4 ways in which local government can improve the conditions. Seems like a lot of words, but it's actually a simple answer. What we're saying is, what steps can government take? And that's your paragraph questions, learners. Read through it. You've studied it already. Many of you see a lot of words, and then you think it's too difficult, but it's actually there. You've done it. Read carefully. Look at the action words, and I'll show you the answers. It's simple stuff again. Basically what it is again, and I'm praying this thing works. It worked.
There we go.
Finger's getting
Second
better.
time lucky.
It's getting better. All right, so when we look at this, same things that you've studied, amend laws that will allow government to develop and regulate the informal sector. You understand we did that in the explanation, and you would have done it in school, where you have laws where they can get involved, they can police the area, they can check, they can upgrade, they can educate, but the laws must be put into place where they can even control what is being sold, whether it's illegal, legal, you understand, the type of products, the health of the condition, healthy conditions, what type of fruit is being sold, you understand, whether it's healthy or not. So all these things can be done. Okay, government can also provide, as we said, the support services, which you've done already. Early on, we've done it. So here's it in the answer. Okay, choosing locations that are accessible to and visible to allocate informal businesses. Educate, that means training, all right, and providing financial support for people. So basically, it's the same thing, just that we have to explain it a little more in detail than when we're listing the factors. And that's where we need to get it. Remember, vague answers, there's no 1 mark if it's 2 marks. Vague answers is 0, and if you give a full answer, it's 2 marks if you have to explain. That's what takes place with geography. So explanation has to be a little more. But you know this work, just that the question looks a bit more difficult. All right. Let's look at another question, learners. This one I've drawn up here. Okay, a little table, and you can come out like this. Again, it's the same answers, just that you're using a table to answer. As I told you earlier on, it's a very simple question. Let's look at what the table is giving us. First of all, it gives us different years, 2001, 2002, 2004, and 2005. You like my circles? All right, so the formal sector, let's look at what's happening with the formal sector here. All right, there seems to be a bit of an increase as we go up. Let's look at the informal sector. Both agriculture is excluded. Obviously, because we can't really determine this between subsistence and commercial, or large scale and small scale. But we're looking at this formal and informal sector. And what do we notice about the informal sector? And I scribble again there, that it's also increasing. If you look at the percentages also, it's increasing. All right, with a slight decrease there, in the formal sector, and we look at the informal sector, we see a definite increase towards 05. So the sector is increasing. All right, let's look at the questions. State the number of people. See, the examiner is leading you on. State the number of people employed in the informal sector between 2001 and 2005, those two. So all you look at is your table, 2001. Actually, this should have been in thousands. I think the gremlin creeped in here and took out the word. Okay, it's in thousands. So it's 1,967, 1.967 million people. All right? And here, 2.462 million people. So we see those two figures. It's taken straight from our table. Can you see it there? Then it talks about the percentage in terms of people. And we look up here, and we can see it talks about the percentage between 2002 and 2004. Please, learners, don't leave tables out and say, but I haven't seen this table before. These sort of things can be very simple. All I look at 2002 and 2004. There is my percentages. 2002, 15.9, 2004, 20%. So it becomes very, very simple. All I do is I take it out. I got 4 marks for nothing. And I point my thing here. Can you see it? There's my answers. Simple. Taken straight from there. Now the examiner has set the tone. You've seen what's happening here. It's increasing. We ask the question, identify the, and I want to change this a bit. I want to write the word general. I purposely left this word out. General trend, that's what happens. Now, please note, this is a very important word. Because what some people look at, they give an answer like this. It went up in 01, it came down in 02, it went up, it went down. When we talk about the general trend, we look at the figures from here to the figures there. Has there been an increase or a decrease? And that's known as your general trend. And when we look at this, it's a general increase. Okay, so that's the general trend. We just look at the word trend. We don't look at the word general sometimes. All right, and when we look at it again, the amount of people employed in the informal sector is increasing, the general trend. We spotted that already, learners. Simple question. All right, we look at possible reasons. Why is it increasing? Now what we do with this type of question, we can't just take it straight from our notes. We have to select what is appropriate. This is a little higher order question now. Not difficult, obviously. And if you look at it down here, simple stuff. All right, increase in poverty. That's one of the reasons. Poverty increases, therefore more people have to be involved. Increase in illegal immigrants, therefore the percentages go higher. See, we're being selective now. The same thing we've studied, but we're looking at the question, why is this trending? Okay, increase in unemployment. All right, let's look at the next question. Explain the negative impact. Please, learners, I wanted to leave this word out, but I just put it in. When we say this, look at this word, very important. Whether it's a negative or positive impact that this trend will have on the economy of South Africa. What impact will it have? All right, and if I look at my answer here, all right, number 1, simple stuff which you know already, just apply it. Less tax. If I look at it here, less tax for development of services. Obviously, the government is not going to get a lot of tax, and we use the tax for improving our facilities, our services, etc. Okay, it will influence the formal sector negatively because there you have, Tara, you have your formal sector selling your stuff. There, I bring my stuff in front there, and what happens next? You lose business.
Competition.
Yes, and you paying a lot of rent, etc., and you're going to get annoyed with me. You may just close your shop because I'm selling it, I'm not paying tax anymore. All right, and the next one here is it decreases the rate at which the formal businesses develop. There won't be so many formal businesses because there's the informal businesses taking over. And it also discourages foreign investment. Because if there's a lot of informal settlements, people will not get involved in this. All right, just one more question before I take this break. I know, learners, I'm so excited about this. This one here. Discuss people involved in the informal sector contribute positively to the economy. You understand? Do you agree with this statement? Now look at this. Different question. How do they contribute positively? Let's look at this now. Why do we say all of a sudden they contribute positively? A simple answer. I agree with this, that they do contribute positively. All right? I agree with this, that they do contribute positively. How do they contribute positively? Number one, remember, if they're earning money, they're going to buy in the shops. So if they're buying in the shops, learners, they're actually paying money and they're paying certain amount of tax. And if they're buying, there'll be more production, there'll be more factories. So they are contributing.
We've come to the end of today's show. Thanks for joining me and for chatting to me during the show. Please visit our website, learn.mindset.co.za, to get the notes and to watch the videos from earlier in the year. And remember, we are here to get you through the year, so stay connected. Goodbye.